today we are in the cafeteria in the State House, winding down the legislative session, also winding down our rotating monthly shows here in the cafeteria. And here for the month of May, for a couple more weeks here, we have Vermont Farm Kids Rooted in the Land, which is a photographic show. These are photos that are printed and mounted on foam core that have Vermont Farm Kids in them, along with a great quote and information about the kids. These are really neat, really fun pictures. It's a show that was put together a couple years ago. I'll give you a little bit of information about it. The Still Life photo series honors a documentary project that celebrates the lives of a diverse array of kids who have grown up as part of farming families. It features a variety of farms, everything from dairy to produce to livestock, maple. Kind of covers the gamut of Vermont's agriculture, and it captures what it means to grow up as a farm kid and perhaps evolve into an agricultural entrepreneur for some of these kids moving forward. So the folks at NOFA traveled more than 1,500 miles around Vermont. They interviewed 20 kids between the age of 8 and 29, including those young adults who stayed on the farm and those who left and chose to return. And this was their chance to reflect on their experiences, discuss the joys and challenges of their work or being on a farm, and share their stories with the Vermont community and beyond, depending on where this show continues to go. This project was the highlight of Vermont's 5th annual Agricultural Literacy Week, which happened in November of 2017. And it was a week that was started by NOFA Vermont, which is the Northeast Organic Farming Association of Vermont, as a statewide effort to promote the understanding of agriculture with a focus on local farming, healthy food, and strong communities. And they thought what better way to accomplish that goal than to hear from kids themselves about the life-shaping stories that they've had growing up on various farms around the state here. And again, it's a really neat show. We have probably about 15 or 20 pictures here of the kids around the State House. It will run until the end of May. So if you see this before that and you have an opportunity to stop by the State House before the show comes down, it's very different than some of the shows we've had this year, and that's one of the great things I think about what we run here during the legislative session, is every show is a little bit different. So we've bounced from now beautiful wildlife photographs to these really much smaller, they don't take up as much space, but these really wonderful, vibrant, intimate photos of Vermont farm kids with these really interesting or sometimes cute or thought-provoking quotes that they have about their experiences growing up on a farm. So we appreciate that NOFA reached out to us and that we were able to find a slot to fit them in here. It's a great show. It has a great tie-in to Vermont's agriculture and Vermont's young people, and I would encourage you to come give it a look.
You guys look very nice. Okay, here we go. Ready?
8 more.
3, 2, 1. Okay. I'm going to do a triple check here. Okay, big smiles. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Good. Okay, 5 more. 3, 2, 1. There we go. Good. That's good. 4 more. A lot of eyes out there. That could close. Good. Okay. I saw 2 of them close right there. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Okay.
2 eyes for 2 people.
Okay. Penny and Helen, you make sure you're really dead center in that space. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Good. And we did 3 more, right? 3, 2, 1. Okay. Good. Let's do 2 more. Good smiles. Here we go. Looking right here. 3, 2, 1. Okay. 5 more. Just kidding. 1 more. Last one. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Good. Got it. Thank you.
Greetings. This is State Representative Mike Mrowicki here at the State House in what we hope are the last few days of the session. The calendar says spring, but certainly the weather has not been cooperating. And yesterday we awakened to a fresh blanket of snow, and I have to say it's disappointing. We have been waiting for spring, but in any event, it's time for us to finish up the session and to get home. Yeah, as a part-time legislator, many of us, like myself, have jobs and families to get back to. So it's time for us to finish up. So we're hoping to finish up work on the budget this week. Most especially, we want to make sure that, of course, we always balance the budget, and we want to make sure that we do things that help people continue to build the economy, and especially make an economy that works for all, not just a select few. As been seeing on the national level, tax cuts and the stock market benefit millionaires and corporations, and that's not happening in Vermont. So we want to make sure we can do things to help everybody. A couple of the bills that I've been working on that I'm hoping we can pass soon. Gun safety has been something that I've become aware of, and most especially the high number of suicides by gun in Vermont. We have a waiting period bill that we hope to put on the floor of the House today that will address this. In states that have put waiting periods on, suicides are fewer, and domestic violence is often lessened. The other thing that we've learned recently as well is that there are out-of-state drug dealers who come to Vermont, enlist addicts who live in Vermont to go buy guns for them in exchange for drugs. A waiting period would stop this, because an addict is not going to sit around for 24 hours to wait for a gun background check to go through. So there's a lot of benefits. Most of the gun owners that I've talked to are reasonable and feel this is not going to impact them, and I hope we can move through with this and take another step forward in gun violence prevention. Some other things we're looking at is raising the minimum wage. Right now we have one of the higher minimum wages in the country at $10.78, but a livable wage is around $15 an hour. So that's the goal we've set. Whenever we can get there, there's a difference between the House and Senate, but I think we're going to find a compromise there. And, well, again, we want to help the people at the lower end of the economic spectrum, the people that are struggling to get by. And if you just go across the river in New Hampshire, a lot of people like to talk to how much better it is in New Hampshire. Well, the minimum wage is only $7.25, which is the federal level. How do you expect people to live on $7.25 an hour? So we want to help all Vermonters. We want to help those that are really struggling, and that's what the minimum wage is all about. Already we're starting to think about things we need to do next year, but of course there's the basics: roads, bridges, schools, making sure that people are getting help that need help, and then making sure we have an economy that continues to thrive, especially with a lot of people saying there's some dark clouds on the horizon for the economy. So we want to make sure we're prepared for that. And overall, I think it's been a pretty successful session, and I want to thank Rick for doing his bit to help us get the word out across the state for what we're doing. So thanks a lot. Bye-bye now.
This is Hal Colston, representative from Winooski. So I'm happy to report my first term in the House of Representatives has been an exciting one, filled with lots and lots of learning. Learning the process of legislation has been fascinating, and one that will continue. And also making relationships with many of the members and learning how to connect and collaborate. So it's been a really exciting first term. I came a little bit late, got appointed by the governor, so I missed about the first 10 days. So it's been catch up, but I guess I've been comfortable with just feeling overwhelmed, because that's pretty much my day-to-day. Yet I'm learning and growing. Happy to report that I did introduce a bill, H427, an act relating to the foreign credential verification through the Office of Professional Regulation. That bill went through the process, went over to the Senate, was supported by the Senate, and was signed by the governor about 2 weeks ago. So now it is known as Act 10. And I'm really proud of this bill because it really addresses a huge need that we have, not only in our cities, but in our state. And that is filling these much needed positions by professionals and many of them are neighbors who are new Americans. So how do we come up with a process to really vet and verify their credentials so they can be employed in their specialties as opposed to driving cabs or doing entry-level work? So I'm really proud and excited that this is now law, and it will certainly have an impact on our communities as we go forward. And excited to learn from the Office of Professional Regulation, which is developing the process that will make this reality. So stay tuned as I continue to learn and grow and hopefully make an impact not only for Winooski, but for all the citizens of Vermont. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Senator Randy Brock from the Franklin District, which is Franklin County and part of Grand Isle County. We're at the end of the session, finally, and the likelihood is we're going to go home in a few days. And my concern is about some of the things that we've done and the extent of what we've done. Imagine, if you will, somebody asking you on a math test, how much does a ton of feathers weigh? Well, the answer is it weighs a ton. And we're being buried in feathers. It's where we are right now. Because what we constantly are hearing is, well, if we just add a little bit more to this tax and a little bit more to this spending and a little bit more to that, none of it amounts to a whole lot. But when you add it all together, we've been buried and crushed by a ton of feathers. We've spent more money than we should have, in my opinion, because our spending is increased much higher than the rate of inflation. Whether Vermonters can continue to afford continuing tax increases and the continuing spending that the legislature has had is the real question that Vermonters are going to have to ask as they look at their tax bills over the next several years. We're increasing the top rate of the income tax. We're increasing most likely a tax to pay for paid family leave. We're increasing taxes on things like the Universal Service Fund that you'll see on your telephone bill, and on and on and on. And the big thing that we haven't really talked about in this is the amount of tax increase that will come as a result of changes in local school spending, which are up something like 67, 68, or $69 million over last year, and there'll be the likelihood of some small increase in the property tax. This increased incremental burden on Vermont taxpayers is something that many of us are concerned about, and we're concerned about that trend. Hopefully in the next several days, the one encouraging thing is that our revenue forecasts show that we're going to have a significant surplus this year. And I hope that that revenue surplus can be used in some small measure to reduce the impact of these tax increases that are pending. So thanks very much, and hope to see you in the next biennium.
Hi, my name is Rich Westman. I'm the senator from Lamoille, and I am busy right now on the conference committee on the budget. My afternoon committee in the Senate is appropriations, and my areas of interest generally are in the human services area. My morning committee is human services, and I make all the recommendations and appropriations on DCF, the Department of Children and Families, DALE, which is independent in living, and the health department. And one of the largest areas of disagreement between the House, Senate, and Governor this year, and where there's been the most interest, is childcare, and I'm spending a lot of time on the increases in childcare that we're looking at in the different proposals around childcare. It's really great to see that we're spending time on childcare because there's such a need, and particularly amongst infants, which are 0 to 1, and toddlers, which are the 1s to 3. And what is going on in that area right now? There is about 6,000 births in the state a year, and we have placements in regulated childcare for about half of all the kids that are born. And when you have about 70% of all kids, both parents working, there's a huge gap between the number of placements in childcare and the kids that are out there. So it's becoming, we've heard horror stories about families that have not been able to get childcare for their kids, and it's forcing people out of work and that. So the fee scale, as we call it, or CCFAP, is the child care subsidy that is for based upon income level for kids. And we're talking about a rate increase. Everybody's talking about a rate increase. We're talking about more education, the difference between scholarships, loans, and the issue that is separating the House and the Senate a little is how do we get more people to work in the child care business? So the Senate has proposed working with tech centers to have a certification process for workers in the child care area to help kids get interested, get a certification so they can be alone with kids when they go to work in a child care area, and giving them some credit towards a jump towards going on to school for more education around that. So there's education components, there's fee scale components, there's grants to help open child care facilities that are all in flux between the two bodies in the conference committee. So I'm spending most of my time talking about child care. We're also talking about the drop-off in the number of people that are in Reach Up, which used to be the old welfare programs, and that we've had a 37% drop in the number of people that are on Reach Up benefits since 2013, which is really good news. But then you have to adjust your staff because Reach Up has counselors that help people go in what is welfare to work into jobs and getting them ready and adjusting that staff. We have different levels of staff. Some are, the people that do counseling are in parent-child centers. There are some that work in the Reach Up area in what we call economic services, and they're all counselors. And adjusting that is causing big issues between child care centers and the state employees, and how you make those adjustments. One of the other big areas that we're also talking about is in the Family Services Division within the Department of Children and Families, which they have a huge increase in caseload because there's so many families in trouble with opiate problems that they need help. And we're dealing with increases there in how we meet the needs of those families and not let them basically fall apart, because if they fall apart, it's more money for us in the long run. So it's a busy time in the last week or last few days of the legislature when you're trying to deal with a conference committee and work out those final differences to deal, particularly for me, in the Department of Children and Families areas, and there's lots of issues around.
Hello, everybody. My name is Joe Benning. I am the junior state senator from Caledonia County. I am also the minority leader in the Vermont State Senate. I'm the chair of Senate Institutions, and I also serve on Senate Judiciary. We are hopefully approaching the end of the session. It's always a joy to bring you these simple messages to try to update you on where things are. But right now, I would say there's at least 48 hours left to go, and this is that magical time of year when everybody starts to lose their patience, their normal smiling personalities, and we start to get on each other's nerves for reasons that I can't quite explain, but it happens every year, and this is my 9th year of doing it. We have a couple of big money bills that have to be resolved before the session can end. There are several little policy bills that are subjects of discussion that probably could drag us out for a good length of time, but those money bills are the real triggers as to how and when we get out of here. My hope right now is that we are out of here sometime before midnight on Saturday, and the session can come to a happy conclusion. We are inevitably going to raise taxes. We're going to increase the level of bureaucracy that is here. You may notice some sarcasm in my voice. That's because I'm frustrated about those two things, but that's the nature of the beast. Hopefully we will also try to correct some of the problems that you face on a regular day-to-day basis. So until next year, I'd like to wish you all very well and hope that you have a great summer and fall, and we'll pick it up again next year. Special thanks to Rick for hosting all of this and keeping us somewhat civil in the process. Thanks for having us.
Howdy, Rick. Thanks for having me on your show again. My name is Jay Hooper. I am in my second term here in the House of Representatives. I serve on the Education Committee. I represent the 5 towns of Brookfield, Braintree, Randolph, Granville, and Roxbury. And I'm wondering today what time we might get off the floor, as we are still debating on the first item of the day, which is a big one, because we're contemplating the details by which we raise the minimum wage here in Vermont, what the timeline should be, the politics. I think the politics are dominating today's process. We want to send a bill to the governor that he might be willing to sign, and there was a really good amendment just the last hour that we were debating about that was offered by Robin Chestnut Tangerman. I call him the super minority leader because he's the chief of the Progressive Caucus, and actually Brian Chena split the bill in two to really isolate the variables that I voted against, which didn't feel great. I didn't like supporting or not supporting the two components to the amendment. But I did it because I trust the process of the Appropriations Committee and the other committees of jurisdiction, because they did the hard work, the detailed analysis, and it was in the political context that I think is the most important part of this discussion today. And so I think protest votes are not effective in terms of making progress on raising the wage. It's not perfect. The bill is actually pretty moderate. It's like not very. I actually was one of 12, mostly progressives, but a couple of us Democrats, to vote for a 3-year increase to the minimum wage. I guess that would have been, so it would have been by 2021. So anyway, I guess what I mean to say is that the reason I voted the way I did today was because I think this conversation is in its midst, no matter how today goes and whether or not the bill becomes law based on a signature from the governor. I think we're going to return to this dialogue next year anyway. And I think over the summer, a lot of the members of the Democratic caucus who really feel disappointed by today's outcome and the circumstances that led to today's breakdown politically, they're probably going to get on their horses to recruit some more cavalry for this fight, so we can come back and make it happen in a robust and effective way, so that hardworking Vermonters get the financial compensation they deserve for their day in and day out jobs. So we're going to keep up the good fight, as they say, and hopefully today we can come up with something that the executive branch will embrace. So thanks, Rick.